Hey everyone, so today I'm releasing a video explaining where all the media goes. It's been requested. So I think the best way to go about this is to sort of go through the folders on the Mega site that I've put up one by one and explain exactly what's in there and what you need for pause, what you don't need, and where everything kind of goes. So the first thing you need to do is go to one of my videos. It doesn't matter which one as long as it has the link in the bottom. All these links will be the same. I used to post different links for each type of media in there, but since about January, I believe it's changed. And now I just post the same link at the bottom of all of my Rocket Launcher Experience videos. So it doesn't matter which one you go to. So if you click on, let's start with miscellaneous, and we'll go through that folder first. So you're going to click on that link, and it's going to bring you to this. And once that opens, you're going to see these folders, and I'm going to go through each folder. Now, old downloads is basically my stuff that I had, like, from last April until about maybe September or so. Maybe November. I don't know. I kind of changed my system over, and it used to be one wheel. But since then, I have gone with a full menu in Hyperspin, so this stuff is kind of outdated for me. But I figured maybe there's still people who use one wheel, or maybe they can use this kind of stuff, so I left it there because it really doesn't take up that much space on the drive. So let's spread this out some here so we can see the names. Now this has my old bezels, ones that I created, I believe they are. I haven't seen this stuff in a while, so I'm gonna do the best I can at describing this particular folder. Genre backgrounds, I just gathered some backgrounds together for each system because I used to run, like I said, one wheel, and I separated the systems in the genre menu. It was part of the progression to moving to multiple wheels instead when I finally realized that it was silly what I was getting into. Genre wheels, I have the wheels for each particular thing in the genre section, and the XML lists. They're not complete XML lists. They are just what I had on my system at the time. I considered them to be the best from each system that I have on here, or that I had on here. Hyperpause backgrounds. I honestly don't remember what this is, so you'll have to forgive me. I'll probably check it out. Let me see if I can actually access my computer over here through the network and check it. Nope, I do not have that folder shared. So I was looking for my Rocket Launcher Media folder, but on my other PC, but it's not shared. So I'll check it out. I really don't know what's in that. I think it's just when I first started making Rocket Launcher Media, I had a bunch of backgrounds together from the games that I had at the time, and then that was deprecated because I moved on and got backgrounds for all the games instead. So this is just an old pack, a minimal pack. I could probably just get rid of that. MAME Artwork 1 wheels. These are wheels that I created in a auto custom program, and I believe these have the logo on the side of them, and for each system. Once again, I had one wheel, so I wanted to kind of differentiate the wheels from the actual wheel art from each other on a per system basis, so I made these wheels. Unfortunately, there's not complete wheel sets, and I always plan on going back to this because I really did like the way that they came out. So I was going to make complete sets of these wheels. So If you're interested in wheel sets for Hyperspin, or even, you know, whatever front end you're using, and you check these out and you like them, let me know, because I'm thinking about just making full sets of them. So Hyperspin menu wheels. That's a good one. That I don't know. Really, these older things, like I said, I'm not really sure what's in them. It's been a while. You could see right here, 6/28/2016 is when I actually uploaded them. It's been a while, so I'm doing my best for this folder here. The rest of the folders are simple. Intro and marquee artwork. So this is my basic intro that I altered. I got the video from YouTube and edited it to change the music to the Killer Instinct player select screen. It also includes my startup marquee artwork that I had at the time when I uploaded this. MAME game info. I have one large info database file for my marquee. I did at the time for the one wheel, and I put all of the info for the games that I had into that info file. Basically, if you're looking for a quick one wheel setup with the best games from the systems, this is the stuff to do that. If you know how to piece it together, if you can piece it together yourself. I'm not going to go through how to piece these together because this is my old stuff. I would literally have to tear my setup right now apart just to explain it. And this is just in case anybody needs this stuff. I don't even use this anymore, so. But if you wanted to do a one wheel deal, all of these things together are going to help you do that. And all you would have to do is just grab the games that are involved. So, unified theme. This is a theme I created so that it all fits together nicely. XML files. It's exactly what it says. Hyperspin XML files that have been altered to have the game list that I had. It's probably just got one XML file, I believe, for the main wheel. And everything worked off MAME, the MAME wheel. MAME. Various theme work. These are all of my themes that I've thrown together and built for PC games and main menu themes and stuff like that. I'll have to do a video to kind of showcase ones that I created. And maybe I'll make a folder specifically for themes that I made for Hyperspin, because I have done quite a few. But you can get them all here, at least up to that date. I have created some more since then, so I'll have to go through that. Extension layouts. This is probably not for everybody. It's my controller settings on a blue background that I created. I should upload the default one in case anyone wants to use it. But I eventually came to the realization that the one I created was pretty ugly, because I found CP Wizard, which you'll see in this folder right here. It can create much better looking layouts for the controls. So, but these are my old ones. I don't really think anybody can use this. I mean, it's a 500 megabyte download. Don't waste your bandwidth, because this is more for my personal archiving. It's basically just my control setup, and not everybody has the same control setup, so could be useful to some if you use a extension controller, though, maybe. I don't know. Alright, so let's move on to the actual folders here. So when you click on Fade on the left here, you're going to see this stuff. You're going to see Dark Light, Updated Layer 3, and Updated Layer 4. So what you should do is, if you want the fades that I'm using, that I currently use, if you see them in a video and you like them, or you see them in an update video, this is the folder to go to. And I'll explain these purple dots and updating future updates to them as we go along. But for now, I'm going to stick to what media is in the folder. So you're looking at the front end one. These I just came out with recently. And they are your default fades. So let's go into, whoops, not Hyperspin. Let's go into Rocket Launcher. And we're going to go to the media folder. And we're going to go to fade, because that's what we're working with right now. So these front end folders, these front end fades are going to go into a default folder under your fade. Alright, so you're going to have your... right there. You're going to have the one that you're currently using. Feel free to download all of them and keep them all just in case. You never know. But all you really need is the front end that you're currently using. Okay, and you're just going to drop... you're going to open up the zip file and drop the raw files into your default folder under Fade. And I just keep these here just in case, whatever. I like to mess with different front ends. So what I suggest you do is there's going to be a bunch of files in that folder already for the default one for Rocket Launcher that you download with the program. Just create a folder and store all that in here, because I don't ever suggest throwing away any media for a program in favor of someone else's, because what happens one day, let's say you want to change your mind and you want to go back to the original or something, something comes up. But that's purely your choice if you want to make a folder and keep the old stuff, or you can just write over it, doesn't matter. I choose to keep it though. I also suggest that you keep the zip file in this folder for the fade that you have, because if one day they update it themselves and replace your layer 1, you don't want to have to come back and track this down later to get the files all over again. So you're going to want to have that backup in a zip file so that you can just pull from it whenever you need to replace whatever files were written over if you want to keep this fade. Okay, so that covers the front end fades, and then you have all these console and arcade and system fades, and there's over 200 of them in this folder. So each one, don't worry about the sizes. There's two ways to tell though. I'll explain the purple dots now. There's two ways to tell what's new media, what just came out. Number one, I will always put a purple dot on the latest media that came out, whatever I recently released, and I will remove the dots from the previous media. So if I come out with a video introducing ScumVM magazines, I will get rid of these purple dots off of these fades because they are no longer the latest media, and I will put the purple dots on the ScumVM files on the magazines. Okay. Also, you can go by date created if you want to find out what entered this folder last. So you look at the date created, it'll tell you 5/02/2017, and then you got 5/02/429. So that allows you to pick all the new ones if you want to update your folder. So if you know, it's going to take a little bit of, I don't have the ability to run like automatic updates on my stuff because it's not my program. I'm not affiliated with Rocket Launcher whatsoever. I do this on a personal level, so I don't have any update software. I don't have anything to really say this is new other than purple dots, a date, and something else I'll explain later with some other media. So that's really the best I can do. It's kind of up to everybody else to kind of know when the last time they updated this stuff was. Now, if you're a subscriber and you see you watch my videos, you'll know when my stuff comes out and you'll update as it goes. If you're a new subscriber and you haven't got my stuff yet, well then everything's new to you. So you kind of know the last video you watched, and that'll be kind of where you pick up at. So if you haven't watched the video in 2 months, well then you probably haven't got this stuff yet. If you keep up with the videos and you watch these dates, then you will know exactly where you need to pick up with on getting new media. Now, I don't suggest that you have to go through every folder to check the dates for everything, but I'm pretty good at saying what came out new in my videos. So, alright, so that covers the dark system folders, and what you're going to do with those is it's very simple. You want a Super Nintendo, I don't have those systems, so a lot of the recent ones I made for systems that I don't even personally have. Okay, so AAE, you want to put that fade in. You're just going to download it, and one of the batches of fades that I did, I may fix it sometime this weekend. I'll get to it, but I uploaded them and they did not have a default folder. And when you open, let's say AAE, you'll notice it has a default folder at the top. And so a lot of mine do have that. They're in that default folder, but the previous to last batch that I did, you'll see them. They don't have a default folder, but just know that when you download these zip files, you're going to go to the raw media in that folder. And when I say raw media, that's this. There's no folder structure to it. It's just raw media. All that raw media gets dropped into the default folder for the system that the zip file is named after. And some of these names may be off, depending on the front end or the naming structure that's used for it. The system may not match on the zip file to what you have in your folder. And nothing's saying you can't mix and match. If you like the layer 4 from MAME, but you don't like the one from AAE, you can put the MAME one in AAE, whatever you want to do. It's really versatile. You can switch stuff around. So that covers the fades. As far as the dark, you just want to make sure your raw media is in the default folder of the console that you're currently putting a fade for. Now, the light folder, when you go to fades, that light folder right there is my older fades when I initially started, and you can see once again the dates, December 18th. In December, I decided that the fades themselves were a little too light on the background, and the background pictures, the wallpapers behind them, were drowning out the fade image that I put on the top left. So I decided to make the background on the fades a bit darker. And I think it came out a lot better, which is why I don't support the light version anymore. But I did leave the light ones up here just in case there's anybody who wants them. There's not as many as the dark because I've just been making dark and I stopped making light in December. But they are here and you're free to get them if you want. So that covers the fades. Now the next thing you're going to see is marquee videos. So when you click on that, you're just going to have this little one that's 19 megabytes because I had every intention of working on more marquee videos. I just didn't have the time to come back to it, but eventually I will because I would love to have these for all the main wheel systems. And it doesn't take much to do it either. Just a little bit of recording game footage and slapping a logo on there the whole time. And it can come out really cool. So I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about, though, if I can. Oh. That's in my actual HyperMarquee setup. So I have my marquee media separated. I don't go into any other folders with my marquee setup. I think it's cleaner. And I think when I need to find something that's going wrong or artwork that's wrong on my marquee, I just have to look in one place. So that works for me. Let's see, marquees. I believe it was a MAME marquee, but I don't think I have it in that folder. Let's grab it, and then we're gonna. So basically, what this is a GIF animated marquee. And if you've seen my other video, you'll know what it looks like in the marquee. But yes, I created this. I took the intro to Mortal Kombat 2 and put it into Sony Vegas and shrunk it down, put it exactly to the height and width that I needed it, and then put it through a program online to create the video into a GIF, a GIF, whatever you want to call it. And so these I planned on going back to because they really look phenomenal when they're in the marquee monitor. It's just I didn't have time to make more, like I said, and I wasn't just going to leave one, so I don't even run this on my arcade at the moment. But the plan is to work on these a bit more because I really like these. And then this is my default. So this is what I run when the arcade starts up. I run this video. And this is basically the same thing. Put it in Sony Vegas, and this is the video that I created out of it. I shrunk it down to the spot where I wanted it. And then I believe I made it into a GIF, but I don't remember. So I'll go to main menu here. Unknown. Okay, so the reason I put unknown, I'll get into that when I do a hypermarquee video. I don't want to stray too far from the point here. But the reason I put unknown is because if you want, with Hyperspin, if you want to display media when your arcade is starting up, you just name it unknown. And that way it'll play when your arcade starts. I'll show you. I have my info file for the main menu as well. And you can see right here, unknown. And it'll say that on my marquee monitor when it starts up. I'm sure you could put other words there that would work, but that worked for me. And I didn't find that online. I just kind of stumbled on it because I put unknown. I put unknown until I could figure out what to put. And then all of a sudden it started working, and I was like, what the hell? So that's that. I'm going to get away from Hypermarquee because that's a whole nother video in itself. But we'll go back to Rocket Launcher Media. So that's Marquee Videos. And Marquee Wallpapers is the wallpapers that I actually use on my system. So let's go to music, I think it is. My Windows files. Yeah, wallpapers right in front of me. So this is the wallpaper that I use on my system. I don't know if this is in that folder because I put that up a while ago, but there's other ones that I use, and I find it easier than trying to have a background display on stuff, just to make the simple wallpaper for it and have that on the monitor all the time and fit my Hypermarquee windows to it. So these are the different wallpapers that are in there. They should all be in there for displaying the media for Hypermarquee. We'll go back to media. Marquees. So these are the high-res marquees that I created. Well, I should have stayed in Hypermarquee, seriously. Marquees, main menu. Okay. So in here, you're going to see... Oh, there is one thing I did not go over. These updated layer 3, updated layer 4 in fades. I hate to go forward and go back, but these, once you get your fades in there, you're going to want to grab these and drop them into the folders that they belong in, because I cleaned up some artwork and some loading text, changed it to the right font and stuff like that. So these are just like little mini updates to some of the fades that I did where I wasn't happy with how the artwork came out. And you'll probably see more of those, and just check the date here or here. It doesn't matter, it's the same date. Alright, so back to this. So high-res marquees is these two files right here, the C64 Amiga and DOS and C64 Amiga and DOS. Those are add-ons for the game selection and main menu. When you see the main menu one, the 62 megabyte file, that's all the ones for the main menu for Hypermarquee. All the ones that I've created. So if you download that file, you'll get all of those. When you see the one for game selection, that is the singular ones. Like this. And this. So the way I have my Hypermarquee set up is when you go into a wheel, it will load this marquee onto the monitor, onto the marquee monitor. And then this will not change. This will stay on the whole time you're in that wheel, and the wheel art will just change in the middle. I have to work on transitions a little bit more because mine's not exactly smooth, but that's how it works. Rather than make a marquee for every single game and have all that extra space and stuff being taken up, I just change out the wheel art as it switches games. So that is the game selection ones. And like I said, these are just add-ons for those marquees. And I can't tell you where to put these marquee videos, wallpapers, marquees, because that differs for every system. It's different for everything. So this next folder is menu logos. And that is... we're going to download that one just so I can see exactly. Alright, so these are the default menu logos for Rocket Launcher. And basically these are the first ones that I ever created. And it was when I found out that you can actually change the labels, I wanted to get out there and be the first one to make some. I don't know if I was the first, but I sure attempted to be. And so these are for your default. They didn't used to be across the board. I started making them for all the other systems as well. If you know my channel, you already know that. But this was the start of it. Okay. These logos right here, this is what you're going to do with these logos. So you got the pause folder right here in your media folder. So you go to pause, and then you go to menu logos, and you're presented with this folder. Now, it may not have other folders in there. You just have to create them. That's all. For each system. And these default logos, if you want them to show across the board on all your systems, you're just going to put them in your default folder. It's going to drop it right in there. I do have to change mine a bit because I'll explain later about this controller selected. I no longer put media in the controller section because I feel like it's something being taken up that doesn't need to be taken up. That's kind of an important folder for a lot of people, and I don't want to impede on what they've already done with their pause menu by taking that from them. So I put that back, and it's no longer... oh no, yeah, I switched it in there. So it's already got the change. Yeah, it's controller again. It used to be maps, but I've changed it back since then. So you're going to drag and drop all these files into here. I did not change it on the upload. I'll change that later on today. I'll get that fixed. So the default ones go there, and we will move on to music. This is default music. So I'm not going to play the music here, but you get the idea. It's music. It's got a few tracks in there, and basically you just go to the music folder into media and your default folder, and you will see it'll be empty probably, or it'll have, I believe the default program has a Final Fantasy VII track and stuff like that. If you want to leave that, by all means leave it, but I provide these songs. They're mostly 8-bit or kind of classic PC songs and stuff, and except for this last one here. You won't see this default M3U file though. That's not created until after you play it in pause. Once you play it once in pause, it'll create an M3U file, which is basically just a text file that shows what's in that folder. You can alter this if you want once the M3U is created, or you can create your own M3U file. Just create a text file and change the extension to M3U, and it'll work. but the M3U file must be named after the folder. The folder name is default, the M3U file has to be named default. And same thing with the game names. So here you have all the song names, and if you want this song to play second, you can actually just get rid of it and put it underneath the next one and swap the numbers around. If you want it to be clean, just change their position in this list. This is the order that they'll play in. They're easily changeable. You can create an M3U playlist ahead of time if you want. It doesn't matter. But Rocket Launcher does that for you when you play the media, so I tend to just let it do what it does. Alright, so that's the default music. And then you go to settings. These are definitely a bit old. I mean, you can see this is December. Things change. A lot of stuff changes, especially with these front ends and Rocket Launcher and stuff. So I would take these with a grain of salt. You know, I might even get rid of them because I don't want old stuff up there for settings. I don't remember exactly what settings they are. I know I released a video explaining what they are, but I'm going to have to release a video explaining how to set up pause and fade to look exactly how I have it. Because even with these settings files, I've noticed some people's setups don't, you know, when they post a video on YouTube and stuff, it doesn't quite look like mine. Either they choose for it not to, or they can't quite figure it out, or something's going on here. So I'm just going to make a straight up video and go setting by setting explaining how I do my fade and pause. And that, I don't know when that'll be out, but I'm going to try to get that done soon. That'll probably be the next one I do as far as this stuff goes. Alright, so I have my old Hyperspin settings. I have my pause and fade settings screenshots. So these are actual screenshots of my settings. Now, if you're going to go by anything, go by these screenshots. I wouldn't really go by this stuff. Or this stuff, anyways. I would just look at the screenshots and sort of mimic what it says on the screenshots into your Rocket Launcher program. And it should look like my fade and my pause. But that's entirely up to you. I'm not forcing anybody to do that. You can definitely put it different ways if you want. Alright, so that covers the miscellaneous folder on the Mega site. And we are going to move on to the... You're going to see the other link here for Rocket Launcher Experience. When you click that, it's going to bring you to this stuff. Alright, so let's click on AAE. And when you open AAE, you're going to see all these files. And it's pretty similar to every other folder, but I'm going to go through a couple other folders as well. The first thing you're going to probably notice is it's got the media here, but then it has this right here. It says Manuals, Magazines, AAE Default Symlink to MAME. And you're probably going to wonder what that is. For those that don't know what a Symlink is, I will go into here, right here, and you see these little green arrows. Basically what that does, I'm going to show you here. I have the extension built in here, so I can click on Taito Type X and say pick link source, and then drop as symbolic link. And here you see it made Taito Type X symbolic link. I can click on that and it'll bring me to the Taito folder as if it were the real thing. It's pretty much an exact link to something on your computer. So that's what I did with these. Rather than try to separate out all the media for each classic section or whatever it's I'm using them for, I just did links to the main folder, and I keep all of the media inside the main folder. And then these symlinks link to the same folder, the main folder. So that way the front end and pause and all this, I use it on my front end and everything. Symlinks. It's just easier. It saves space, it saves time from having to separate everything, and it's a lot cleaner in my opinion. Now, the only downside to doing that is if you want to find a particular piece of media for Data East Classics, let's say, you have to go to that and you have to sort through everything to find that piece of media. But even then, there's shortcuts to get to certain things, you know, by pressing letters on your keyboard, whatever. So it's not really that much of a downside. Alright, so that's symbolic links. So whenever you see that, it's 0 megabytes, and here too, symlink. Don't worry about those files. Eventually they may get replaced if I find particular media for those games. But you'll see a lot of systems don't even have music, like AAE. There's not really music to those older games. They didn't do the music thing. They just did sound effects. So, and I really don't think anybody wants just sound effects playing when they open pause. It can get a bit annoying. So what that does in the end is when you load up an AAE game and you go to the pause menu, it's going to automatically load up the media that's in the main folder. So we're going to just go here and I'm going to show you exactly before I continue. Alright, so let's say we load up Black Widow, one of my favorite games on AAE. So we'll load up Black Widow. I don't have any audio. I didn't switch the audio over to the other computer, so sorry for that, but we don't really need the game audio to check what I'm checking here. So here's Black Widow, and then we're going to go to the pause menu, and you'll see that even though it's symbolic links, it's still going to have the media from the main folder. So when you go to manuals and guides, it has the manual. When you go to magazines, it's sharing magazines with MAME. When you go to videos, it shares the videos with MAME. And same for music, all of it. It's all the same thing. I mean, it's keeping it all in one spot. So if I ever add, let's say I go and I add another classics one. I know I don't have all the classics menus yet, but let's say I add one. I don't have to worry about separating that media from MAME. I just do the symlinks and it's all ready to go in pause. Alright, so that was a long explanation for that. So you got these other ones: menu logos, fade backgrounds, bezel, and artwork. Now the bezels, a lot of the bezels I did not make myself. If I didn't make any changes to them, then I did not upload them. But if I do download original content and I alter it in a way that I feel improves it or alternates it to fit other situations, then I will re-upload that, but I will state where it came from. At the moment, I can't state where these things came from, but in the video where I release them, I do. I tell you guys where they come from. I can't tell you now because I don't remember. I believe I made this one, if I recall, but... So, you're going to go to artwork here, and then, now you'll see this V1. It means that it could or will possibly get an update in the future as an add-on. If I ever take anything down, I'll let you guys know in a video. I will keep you guys updated on that. But I don't tend to take anything down. What I'll usually do is if I go back to the AAE fade, because I feel it needs improvements, I'll release it as version 2. You know, or something like that. I'll release it as a separate part, and then I'll explain in the video if anything ever changes with something. But this version 1 or part 1, just like this, it just means that there will be an update in the future to that particular thing once I find the media that belongs there. So we got artwork here, which basically you're going to open the artwork folder, and once again you see I have these symlinks. You're going to go to your AAE folder, which is not symlinked here. The artwork itself is just PCBs and arcade cabinets and stuff like that, if I found them, and flyers and stuff. So that's that. So you're going to take the artwork and you're going to just put that into these folders here. Just drag and drop. It's MAME. It should match. If you ever find something where you know it should have artwork but it doesn't, just double check the naming of the folder. I go by the hyperlist, so names may change. I also use MAME 148, so some of those names might have changed as well. You never know. So like I said, if it doesn't show media, then just double check that. Now bezel default is in bezels AAE default. You could separate them like this. It makes sense for arcade games to have one horizontal folder and one vertical folder. So when you click on the vertical one, you can see the vertical bezel. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I made these. So then you have your vertical bezel in that folder, and then your horizontal bezel in the horizontal folder. And both of those should be in that folder, that zip file. And that goes under the AAE default. Okay, so now we're going to talk about fade backgrounds. And in that file, you have your layer 1s for fade. And basically the way that fades work is you have your default folder. It starts off with your main default folder that has your front end fades on there. And then it goes on a per system basis that has your default folder in it as well for the system fade. And then you can have separate fades for each game. So that means if you want to have a fade strictly for Legend of Zelda on NES, you could do that, which is one of my plans for the future, is to make, once I finish the systems off, is to start working on per game or per franchise fades, which I really can't wait to get into, but when the time comes. So the method that it uses when it calls for a fade, whenever you start a game, is it will call the game fade first. So it'll look for any files that you have in your game folder that you started. So if you start, let's say, Star Castle, it'll go into the Star Castle folder and it'll look for any files that you have there. So it'll find this layer 1 image right here, this background. And then it'll go into the default for the system and it'll find any missing files. So it's not going to load this layer 1 because it already found a layer 1 in the game folder. So it'll completely bypass this file, but it will load the rest of them. So you have your layer 3, layer -1, and extra layer 1 console, and your layer 4. So it's found all those now. And then it will go to your main default folder for your front end. And it'll look for any files that were missing. But since we've covered all these files already, it will not pull anything from this folder. So it's going to basically stop here, because it has everything it needs. It has the layer 1 from the game, and it has everything else from the system one. So we're going to load up Star Castle, and you'll see here, default layer 1 is a bunch of stars here. So when you go into Star Castle, it has that particular background. So when we load it, it's actually going to load the Star Castle background. So then that covers that. And in this download file are the fade backgrounds for AAE. And now it says part 1. And that's because, obviously, as you can see, I haven't completed this folder yet. But I just wanted to get out what I had at the time to put out some for people. Eventually, at one point, I will go back, because obviously some of these are really easy to find backgrounds for. It's just I haven't got to it yet. So when I do, you'll see Fade Backgrounds AAE Part 2. And in that Part 2 zip, it will not have these. it'll only have the ones that were missing previously. So you'll actually need to download part 1 and part 2 to have the entire set. I chose to do it that way because sure, fade backgrounds, not a big deal, just put them all in there, right? Not so simple, because when you're talking about fade backgrounds, it's not that much, 4 megabytes. But when you're talking about music or videos and you want to re-upload them as a whole, it takes a lot of bandwidth, and people don't want to spend their bandwidth re-downloading stuff they already did. They don't want to have to sort through things that they've already put on there and take them out and so on and so forth. So I figured it was just easier to keep them separated as parts rather than keep re-uploading it as a whole every time I do some work to the folder. That's my sort of way of updating. So if you see multiple parts to something, then you're going to want to grab all those parts if you want the complete setup that I have. Now the next one, I'll cover manuals in another folder because this is a symlink. So the next one is menu logos, AAE default. And that, when you open that, you're going to once again go into pause, like earlier with the default, and then go into menu logos, and you're going to go to AAE. And you're going to put it in the default menu. So much like the default ones, you're just going to throw all these into the default for the system that you're working on. And everything with pause, almost everything works pretty much the same way. It's going to look in the game folder first. So if you have a set of menu logos for a particular game, such as for a franchise or anything, like I was saying earlier, which is also something I plan to do, is make special ones for Zelda games and special ones for Mario games and so on and so forth. But if you have a set in there, it will pull that first. And then it will go to the default folder for the system, and then it will go to the default overall. So as long as you have the media, it won't even get this far if you have the media in your system folder. So you can take those, you'll unzip it, and you'll drop it into the default folder for the system that it represents. And these are symlinks as well. So let's go to a system here that doesn't use symlinks, and that would be the Nintendo Entertainment System. Seems like the easiest one to do here. Alright, so we have backgrounds in this folder, and backgrounds are a little different than the layer ones. Backgrounds will be used in your pause menu and not your fade menu. So when you go to Nintendo Entertainment System, make it a little bigger so we could see. Alright, so once again, backgrounds part 1, because I haven't got to it yet to complete the set of backgrounds, but these will get done eventually. I'm doing bit by bit, and I'll throw those out there when I do them. But you could see here, Back to the Future has a background, and that is the image that will show up in pause. Now, here's something I would like to kind of explain, because you're going to see fade backgrounds and you're going to see backgrounds. Now, remember that Back to the Future picture here, and then we'll go to fade, Nintendo Entertainment System, and we'll go to Back to the Future. It's the same image. Layer 1 though. In the other folder I called it background, this folder it's layer 1. You don't need to do it this way. But I choose to keep them separated in case I eventually find a different image that I think looks cool or whatever, and I want to make them different on both ends. So I separate them. But if you want, you can share the picture from one folder. So let's go to Nintendo Entertainment System. We're going to go to Settings, and then we're going to go to Fade, General. And in that Settings menu right there, you're going to see Use Backgrounds. And you're going to set it to True. And what that'll do is then you don't need these layer ones in the folder anymore for the fade. You won't need to separate them. It'll look in your backgrounds folder for the layer ones for fade. So it'll pull these images up instead at that point. So if you don't want to take up the extra space on your drive, then you can just turn that option on. You can even turn it on globally. Under global here, you just set it to true. But like I said, I keep it false because I like to keep them separated in case I want to make the media different later on. So what that means is if you just want to use the backgrounds for your fade images, you don't need to download the fade backgrounds at all because there's really nothing in there other than layer ones. Okay, so bezels are, once again, these are bezels that I have altered. Most of them I've added a TV border to it and stuff just to kind of differentiate the game from the bezel a little bit more. And those are up on a lot of the systems, not all of them. Alright, so here you have guides, manuals, maps, and guides. I recently made a change to the way that I do my media because it used to be I put the maps in the controller folder. That's how it used to be. But since then I've changed that because I don't want to take up the controller folder, like I said before, because a lot of people use that. They use that to show their controller layouts and things. So I took them out, and what I did was I put them into the guides folder. So we have the one folder that has all of the manuals for the games. It has all of the maps if they're available, and it has any strategy guides for the games. And so I use the ++ sign to keep certain things at the top of the menu. I explained it in another video, but I'll say it again here. I use ++ manual so that that particular PDF file will stay all the way at the top, because you'll have other games. Let's go one that I believe has a lot. Legend of Zelda. Here we go. Okay, so you'll have other games like this that have a lot of strategy guides and walkthroughs and stuff like that. And you don't want the manual to get lost in between here, these two, and then you're trying to find the manual. So this keeps it at the top by putting ++. Now you can do other things like underscores and stuff to keep it there, but I just kind of chose ++ because it looks better in the menu in my opinion. And then same thing for the folder structure. I put ++ maps to keep that at the very top. So when you look at it in the actual pause menu, let's go here, and I'll also explain something as it's loading. So we'll do, yeah, Legend of Zelda. So Legend of Zelda. We'll start that up, and you'll notice once again it has the background down there. It loads that layer 1 from that folder instead of the default one. And when we go to pause, you're going to notice that it takes a bit to load for some systems. The more PDFs you have in there, it's going to take a bit more time, like magazines and stuff. You can see right there loading manuals. It's mainly the guides section that takes a lot of time to load, and games that have more guides, more manuals and stuff, they're going to take longer. And then the magazines as well. Loading all those JPG images, it takes a while to load, so it's going to bog down the startup a little bit, but once it loads, in my opinion, it's worth it. To some people it may not be. It all depends. So you have the ++ manual right there at the top, right where you want it to be. And then you have your maps folder right underneath that. So the two things that you probably want to get to right away or first that you'd like to read or see are right at the top with that structure. And then it puts in official guides with the plus sign so that they come up second. And then all the regular walkthrough text. These are actually PDFs, not text. I was using text for a little while, but then I discovered that when you use a text file, it cuts off the top and bottom of each page. It doesn't make sense to use text files if it's going to do that. So I switched to PDF files, and Also, when you use text files, it takes longer to load the pause menu than it does with PDF files. I don't know why, but so that explains the way those are set up like that. And also, one thing you're going to want to make sure that when you're loading pause, okay, so when you're loading pause, you're going to see this load PDF and 7-zip at startup. Now, if you have a lot of PDF files on your pause menu and you click true on this, it's going to take much longer to load because it's preloading all the PDF files. It's so that it will run faster when you're in the pause menu, but you're not always there to view a PDF file all the time. Sometimes you want to go in and listen to music or check out the artwork and stuff like that. And no matter what you're loading up pause for, it's going to take a long time if you have this enabled. So I just leave it disabled because it doesn't really take that long to load the PDFs when you're in the menu anyways. It's entirely up to the user, their choice, whatever you prefer. If you only have a couple PDFs in each game, it could be worth it. But some of these, like Earthbound, it takes forever to load if you turn that option on. So keep that in mind. So that is the guides section. And once again, those are going to go into the guides folder. You're going to look at these names and you're going to... What's in the parentheses here is what's in the zip file. You're going to find manuals, maps, and guides. But the name that it starts with is the folder that it belongs in. So it goes into the guides folder. And the same goes for manuals here. Now this might be confusing because you're going to say it says manuals. But manuals is on this file. And I think that's where it throws off a lot of people. Because I have to conform to the Rocket Launcher naming structure for their files, their folders, but it's not quite what's in my files, what I use them for. Under manuals, I have the magazines. So when you go to manuals, Nintendo, these are going to go into the default folder, right there. So I keep the main ones, like the larger books and stuff for the systems, with the plus sign so that they stay at the top, because that's, to me, that's the prime reading material for that system. And then everything else is below that. And if you want to access the stuff that's way at the bottom, all you got to do is just press up and you can go the other direction instead. I don't keep anything in the game folders, but by all means, you guys are free to separate it however you feel like. If you want to put them in the game folders separately or something, I just chose to keep them all in one folder. Alright, so now, why does it say manuals and then magazines there? Because it is magazines, but on the menu it's going to say magazines as well. And the way I differentiate that is with the menu logos. So when you go to menu logos, you're going to see it right here. You're going to see manuals here, because that's what Rocket Launcher refers to it as. But the label actually says magazines. So if you're using my menu labels, then it'll automatically come up the way that it should. But if you're not using my menu logos, then you're going to have to change it yourself. And the way you do that is right here. And I went over this in a previous video, so I'm not going to go over it again, but I just wanted to point out that you guys can check out that tutorial video on my channel there. Pretty much the only tutorial I have other than this one that's going to explain how to change these to fit the naming structure that I use for my stuff, or anything you want to change it to. So you're going to want to change those if you don't use my menu logos. But if you do use the logos, you don't have to change anything really. it's going to show up as this name. And then, of course, here's the other one. So, next is... So you got all these zip folders. Now, don't confuse part 1 like this right here, with zip 1. Because what that means is you have to get all these zips and they work as one. So you need every part. You can hold the shift key and select the last one. You select the first one on the list, hold the shift, select the last one on the list, and it'll get them all. Right click, download. And then what I usually do is standard download. Because if you download a zip, it's going to be one file and it's going to be super large. It's going to take forever to download, and it may screw up in between because that's just the nature of Mega, I guess, when you're living in the US. If you go file by file, it'll probably get 3 or 4 and then screw up. And you just go in, get 3 or 4 more, it'll screw up. I apologize, I'm looking into other ways to do this because I have more media than I started with. This kind of went further than I had planned in the very beginning, but you know, it is what it is. So, you know, you get a few files at a time, and then sometimes your browser will reach its limit, so you'll have to close your browser and then come back in and try it again. So just get them a few at a time. I know there's a lot to get. I understand that, but menu logos, that's of course the menu logos for the Nintendo. I already showed you that. For the default folder, they go into the default folder there. I won't go through every system like that. Music. All these music files, you have 2 parts, and this is what I was talking about. You got part 1 for these up here, and then you have part 2 for these right here. In order to get all of the music, you're going to need to download all of these files. And I believe I have all the music for every game for this system except maybe 8 or 9 games, official games. So if you want all of that, you're going to have to grab every file, and when you keep in mind that this is zip 1 through 5. So that's its own thing right there. And this is zip 1 through 13. So keep that in mind. They're 2 separate zip structures there. But you do need all of them if you want all of the music. So when you go into music here and you have those files, you're going to go to Nintendo Entertainment System and you're going to drop it in here. Now let me explain. You might notice I don't have a default folder here. Because with music, you don't need a default folder for that. Unless you have particular Nintendo music you want to throw in there, you can use a default folder and it'll bypass that. But with music, I just stick with one default folder for the whole system, for the whole arcade, the cabinet itself. And that will cover every system that does not have music yet. It's better than copying that same music into every folder for a default. You just have one default folder. And then when you go to the system itself, you can have a default folder there, like I said, and that will override anything in the main default folder. But I just choose not to. You put the music into this folders in here. Once again, keep an eye on the naming, because not everyone's naming structure is the same. I do use Hyperlist XML for my naming, so if you use something else, you're going to want to really watch that, because you'll drop it in and it may just be Wizardry Knight of Diamonds, and it may not have the end part on here. Or it may not have USA, it might have Europe or something. So really keep an eye on what folders you're replacing. Alright, so that's the music. Next is videos. So the videos are pretty much the same deal. There's no main default folder. You could probably make one. I haven't checked up on it, but I don't plan on doing that. I keep it on the per system basis for videos. And not even on a per game, but you can do that as well. You can put a video inside of a game folder and it'll only show up for that game. I keep them all in the default folder for the systems. It's just, I don't like to load up a game and not see any media in it. And there's a lot of games doing this for as long as I have now. I realized there's a lot of games out there that don't have anything. You just simply can't find anything for it. So you're going to have The Legend of Zelda on your system. When you load it up, it's got all kinds of stuff because it's everywhere. You can find Legend of Zelda media everywhere. But then let's say you load up Adventures of Gilligan's Island and you go to the pause menu. There's absolutely nothing. It's a wasteland because there's no artwork for it other than the box cover. There's no music for it. There's no videos for it. So on and so forth. So a lot of the media I'll share across the entire system so that every time you go to the pause menu, there's something to look at. There's something there, and it makes it worth going to the pause menu. Alright, so I've rambled quite a bit. This is a pretty long video for anybody who watches it. I hope that I didn't bore you at any parts. I hope that it was informative enough to tell you guys where the media goes. I will have another video coming out eventually that explains step by step how to set up my fade the way that it looks on mine, how to set up my pause menu, which this essentially does that anyways if you follow these steps. But there's other little intricate details such as the wheel on the top left and how to get that sized correctly because some people have issues with that. How to move some things around the way you want them and readjust sizes and stuff like that for pause. So I'm going to go over that in another video at some point, and I hope that this answered everybody's questions. If you have any more questions about the media and where it goes, then feel free to drop a comment down below and I will answer you to the best of my knowledge and as quick as I can. I don't like to leave people hanging. Thank you guys for watching and take care.